All right, good morning, ladies and gents. Today we are doing our second custard, which is a stirred custard. Now, before we made a cheesecake, which was a baked custard, today we are going to be making a eggnog, which is going to be a custard that is cooked on the stovetop. So let's just get right into it. So the ingredients are 12 ounces, or about a cup and a half of milk, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 3 eggs that have been separated into their yolks and their whites. The yolks I'm going to put into a large mixing bowl here. The whites are going to go into a KitchenAid mixer that I will use to whip into a meringue later. 3.5 ounces of sugar for the egg yolks, and then separately 1/2 of an ounce of sugar for the meringue. Remember, sugar stabilizes foam structure, so we're going to use a little bit of sugar just to stabilize the meringue here. Now, as far as spices, these are optional, but you can go with anything you'd like. Traditionally, it's cinnamon, ginger, cloves, allspice, nutmeg, things like that. For this one here, I'm just going to add like about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and then a just fresh grating of nutmeg before the eggnog is served. But that's just my personal preference. Again, that is up to you. And then finally, 6 ounces of heavy cream. All right, so what we're going to do here, stirred custard is made on the stovetop here. And the custard here is going to be thickened through the egg yolks here. So step 1 is I'm going to bring the milk here in a saucepan, just the milk, up to a simmer. Okay. Keep an eye on this. It will boil over very quickly if you let it and you turn your back from it. In the other bowl, I'm going to combine my egg yolks, the 3.5 ounces of sugar, as well as the kosher salt in that bowl. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to whisk this until the egg yolks start to lighten up and thicken a little bit on its own. So just incorporating just a little bit of air into the egg yolks. See, at first they're kind of just, crumbling and everything. As you whisk, this will lighten up just a little bit. Okay, you can see here the egg yolks have kind of lightened in color a bit, and our milk is just coming up to a simmer. Now, we got to combine these two. However, what do you think is going to happen if we take hot liquid and just pour it directly into eggs? It's going to scramble. So we got to do, for step 2, we got to do what is called tempering. We got to combine these two, but we have to do it slowly. So this way, when we add the liquid to the eggs don't scramble. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to just turn off the heat here, and I'm just going to take a very small bit of liquid, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the egg yolks while I'm adding in the liquid. And what this does is it slowly raises the temperature of the egg yolks, so that way they don't scramble. So as you add in a little bit more at a time, you can go a little bit quicker. Okay, if you just dump this in all at once, then you just have, scrambled eggs, which is not what you want for an eggnog. All right, so I'm gonna keep going. All right, so now all my liquid is in the eggs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this back into the pan. And now this is where stirred custards are made. They're made on the stovetop. So let me adjust my camera here. Okay, so while the pan is on about medium heat here, I'm going to cook this until the eggs start to thicken, and you can see the eggs will start to coat the back of a spoon. Now, at this stage, you want to stir constantly. If you don't, then what's going to happen is the eggs that are on the bottom of the pot are going to scorch, they're going to coagulate, and they are going to scramble. So you do have to be sitting here stirring quite often. Now, if you want to take its temperature, if you want to go by that, then the temperature that you are looking for on a thermometer is somewhere between 160 and 170. But again, you can do this by visual, done this as well. One thing that also helps is the size of the pan that you're using. So you can use either just a normal saucepan, or what I'm using here is what's called a saucier, where it's kind of rounded on the bottom. That makes just scraping the bottom of the pan a little bit easier here. But yeah, so I'm just going to keep an eye on this, keep it on medium heat, stirring quite consistently. And when it thickens up, I will show you what that looks like. And whatever you do, do not let this boil. Alright, so my custard has thickened up here. So this is an optional step, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain the custard just in case I had any eggs that scrambled during this process. I think it was pretty good, but just want to be sure here. But what I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to put this bowl in an ice bath, so that way it will cool down quite quickly. So step one was to bring the milk up to a simmer while you had the egg yolks and sugar and salt in another bowl. Then you're going to temper the eggs. That's step two. Step three is you are going to heat the custard up to about 160, 170, or until the eggs start to thicken. This is an optional fourth step where I'm just going to strain the custard mixture. And I did have a little bit of egg scorching on the bottom here, so it's actually good that I strained this. So there we go. Okay. And then my fifth step is just going to chill this down in an ice bath. Now, way you can ensure that this cools down quickly is just while it's in the ice bath, just kind of stir quite constantly. That way the cold or the heat from the custard goes into the ice and it chills down quite quickly. But again, that is up to you on how quickly you want to go. But if you want to enjoy this custard in our class time, then I would definitely chill it down. The other thing I'm going to do while I am here in step 5 is I'm going to add in my vanilla, my cream, and I'm also going to add in any spices that I want to use. Now, when it comes to spices, you have usually two options when you are buying them. You can either go with whole spices or you can go with pre-ground. Now, in some cases, the pre-ground version has a lot of flavor to it, and really you can go with that. However, there are some spices that really do not have any flavor pre-ground. That's because spices are very aromatic. When you pre-grind them, a lot of those aromatics go up into the air and you lose them. That's why whenever you open up a container of cinnamon, you can smell it right away. That's flavor that's being lost. Now, cinnamon, you're usually using it quickly enough that it doesn't really matter. But in the case of nutmeg, the ground stuff definitely lacks flavor here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a small grater here, and I'm going to just grate this fresh. So I'm just going to go with about 1/8 of a teaspoon here, so that's just a couple grates, just a little bit, not very much, because this is pretty powerful stuff. And then I'm just going to add a pinch of cinnamon and just stir that in. Okay. Now that's just all I'm going with. Again, you can take this as as spiced as you want, but that is up to you. So yeah, I'm just going to let this cool down. Stir this every once in a while, and let's go ahead and focus on the meringue. Okay, so you guys are pretty familiar already with making a meringue. We're going to whip this up to soft peaks here. I got my sugar and the egg whites in a bowl. Remember, there cannot be any yolks in this mixture. Now, one last thing, if you are making this for somebody who is elderly, has a compromised immune system, or is considered a high-risk population by ServSafe, then you can make this using pasteurized eggs, since we are not cooking the egg whites here. Again, the odds of you getting salmonella from eggs in this country is pretty low, so that's why I'm not really worried about it, but just kind of be advised if that is something that you have to watch for. So With that though, I'm just gonna start this and I'll see you back when this is at soft peaks. All right, that is our meringue made. So we will go on to our last step here. All right, so my custard has cooled in the ice bath here. If you want to measure it, you should have it below 60 degrees. Now for storage, you need to have it at 41 degrees or lower for serve safe. Eggnog is usually best served chilled, but we're gonna go to our last step, which is I'm just going to add in the meringue right in. Now normally I'd be worried about folding it in to keep all the air in and stuff like that. Because this is a drink, I'm not as concerned about that. So just add that in. Just remove the spatula here. And then just kind of whisk the meringue in. That extra air is going to make a much lighter drink, and what makes carton eggnogs not as good as they should be. And once you don't see any more egg white in there, that is our eggnog. There we go. Now you can taste this and adjust sweetness if you would like before you serve it, but for me, I trust that and I think that's good. So now I'm going to serve it up. All right. Now I did actually taste mine and I thought it just needed a little bit more sweetness and a little more spices. But again, taste yours and decide what you want to do. All right, so now I am going to serve this. So I got my cup here and I'm just going to pour that in. Eggnog is a nice, rich, thick drink, and usually it's served either with a little bit of whipped cream or extra meringue on top. I'm just gonna go with a very light grating of nutmeg. And that is our last custard here. So that is it for today. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask and I will help you out. On that, I will see you next time.